All right, thank you for staying with us on Daybreak. And this morning, we now transition to AI and sign language. And with me in studio, I have Dr. Joseph Murray, and he's the President, World Federation of the Deaf. Welcome to our Citizen TV studios.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
All right. And we also have in studio Nixon Kakiri, who is the President of the Kenya National Association of the Deaf.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. So I'll start with you, Dr. Murray. So this is AI and sign language. What opportunities does AI present for people with hearing disability?
There are many opportunities in artificial intelligence and sign languages. Deaf people have always been creative. They've always seen a way through. We always find ways to make something happen innovatively. AI poses a new technological challenge plus opportunities. Opportunities for deaf people has much more advances. For example, in sign languages, we can find different ways of communicating. In sign language, we see video relay services to understand how to communicate, and there are opportunities to have interpreters available in teaching people like you sign language, for example, hearing people. So there are a diverse many opportunities, but there are also challenges.
All right, do you want to get into the challenges now? Or we can hear?
There's one challenge in particular. For example, when we test our technologies, deaf people are not included. It must be something that we want. People in tech, for example, with sign language, they use the sign language gloves. That technology was developed, and there was no deaf people involved. So the creators of these tech gloves and how to have communication challenges, there's no way to solve that. There's only one-way communication. In the sign language world, we have over 200 signed languages. For example, you have here your national Kenyan Sign Language. And when we communicate in Kenyan Sign Language, we need to reciprocate this communication. For examples, when you have sign languages, you also need a speech that goes with it. There's no sign language to speech then. It's only a one-way communication. So we need deaf people to have equality in the communicative stage to access all avenues.
All right, perhaps Nixon, you can tell us, as the President of the Kenya National Association of the Deaf, how many Kenyans are deaf? Like, what population are we talking about?
All right. Thank you very much for the question, first of all. It's estimated around 5.5% of the Kenyan population are deaf, and that equates to around 2.7 million persons who are deaf. So most deaf people live more in other, communities, in rural places. Also, we have those people who are located in the rural places, and there are around 65% who have also grown up deaf, and also we have 25% who became deaf at a later age, maybe some because of age, some because of the effect of maybe loud music. So that explains how different. When it comes, for example, when it comes to the older people, it's nature, because the audio, the ability to get the audios deteriorates, and also just it applies to other people as well.
All right, Dr. Murray, in terms of day-to-day life, how can AI transform the day-to-day life of a person with hearing disability?
Well, thank you for the question. Just yesterday, we had a World Federation of the Deaf conference, the 5th conference that is being hosted in Kenya, where we have deaf associations here in Nairobi. And we had this discussion in particular on the impact of AI on their daily lives. Well, there's different ways. First of all, people that use AI must be able to use sign languages, right? And so the technology must provide access to sign languages. What we see is that there are a lot of innovations that are AI generated, and they are then not ready for the use of AI. So we need to develop these systems to make sure that we have AI with humans included to create something, because they have these signing avatars that they create, but it's not yet ready to have access to fully sign language. But it's coming, it's in the making. So for example, they want to have a personal assistant like Alexa, if you have something like that, of Siri that can speak to themselves, right? Like a command system. So if a deaf person signs on the phone, they must be able to say how to have that, how to interpret that on the closed captioning. When you speak, I must have that speech-to-text translation, right? We don't have that. And so that is what we want to do, that when people sign, it must also be able to respond on that command, and I should have access. So it's not yet ready, but it's there. There's a lot of research being done on this. But what is important is that deaf associations and the deaf community should be involved in these creations of these projects. So they should be part of the development of the AI products. So we need to have co-creation with the deaf community. And this is why we need to ensure that when we make these products, the users are equally involved for co-creation.
And have you had any engagement with like Silicon Valley, the developers of this AI solutions?
Yes, we have some examples in countries where people have been approached for co-creation. But we've seen, it's quite interesting to have seen these examples, like you said, when we sign, will there be a sign to text creation? There's development towards that. I think the first real AI signing technology will be becoming more advanced for transport services. For example, at the airport announcements, when you have train announcements at the railway, we see those avatars being created there. So that's easy to explain, right? But in other such settings, for example, in health settings, when you access medical care, it's a much more sensitive situation, it's much more ethically, highly impacting situation. So assigning avatar there, we would definitely need a deaf person must fully understand the medical diagnosis, for example. So with AI developers, we need to make sure that we cannot fully replace the human interpreter, but it can only supplement the human interpreter.
Do you agree with that, Nixon?
Yes, I do agree with that. And even as you can see that we are having human empathy, right? And also AI, as it itself is in technology, it does not have the human empathy, but it's more of, or like, for example, as we need the assistive technology support, but also, I also need to have the human touch of it. But now, for example, if we drop one side, it also drops another aspect of communication, and we also need like facial expressions. And yes, I do support what the president has said.
So has there been adoption of AI solutions in Kenya in the deaf community?
Yes, the solution in Kenya, I cannot really much say about it, but there are innovations that have been coming up. It's a very good project which has come up, but the approach itself, also we have a problem. There's a problem there because there's exclusion when it comes to the deaf people. Whenever there's design for these innovations, the deaf people are excluded in that. But if possibly we could involve them, the process could have been better. But also when we check on the innovations which are also placed in the televisions, it also talks about like gloves, like they're changed to other designs for technology. But we always see like this exclusion at times. Innovation is not all about just ideas. It's okay, it's ideas, but how do we also involve deaf people whenever we are developing this? There's more of exclusion. That's what I can really say.
Okay. And technology when children are brought up in this day and age, Dr. Murray, it's almost like from the moment they're out of the womb, they're interacting with technology. The world has changed. What advice would you have for parents with children who are deaf and in how they interact with technology?
I do think, first of all, if you are a parent that have a deaf child, please learn sign language to communicate adequately. If you know that your child is safe, you can communicate with them, and that means communication makes it possible. That means they've experienced your love. Please learn Kenyan Sign Language. Learn your national sign language to communicate directly with your child. At the same time, tell them about how to use technology in a responsible way. There's different apps available with communication access. For example, there's different platforms that we have that they can communicate with other deaf youth members, and that can give them more exposure. That's good. But parents should still know that they have the responsibility to take care of their children, to engage with their children on the safety of language use and using technology. For example, even in Kenyan Sign Language, you need to support them to understand how it works. Globally, we have many governments that provide support for parents to ensure that they learn sign languages. And we should have the Kenyan government supporting parents to learn sign language so that they can understand how to support their children. Same as Mr. Kakiri has said, we need to understand that people in rural villages must also learn sign language. And the impact of AI needs to embrace both parents. So we need to build a community where we have stronger deaf communities that uses Kenyan Sign Language. And of equal importance, sign language is important to change the world and to have so many more access.
So
thank you.
Does technology also, one of the opportunities of AI is to assist many more people learn sign language? Dr. Murray.
Yes, of course, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's important if we involve deaf people in creating these AI technologies, for example, the deaf associations, if they have co-creation projects, the deaf users themselves can understand that there's many years of life experience, of lived experience, and they can contribute that to technology, so with many more opportunities opening.
Okay. So, Nixon, how widely there's a Kenyan Sign Language, but how many people are we talking who actually go out of the way to learn sign language?
Oh, thank you very much for the question. I will go back to the Constitution. It was Kenyan Sign Languages put in the Constitution in Kenya, that is way back, and also in the Parliament, there are opportunities, and even nowadays we always say like there's incorporation of an interpreter. And yes, it's really much exciting and interesting that even has created or sparked interest in other people for them to learn the language. Before the Constitution, mostly if I could have walked out and talked with another deaf person, people could grab their attention. But by the time we go to the bank, or you're in a queue, then you make your stories, and there's another deaf person there. It creates another attention. So normally in the Kenyan society right now, people now accept the deaf community, and the Kenyan Sign Language is really much exciting and interesting right now. So what I really do think is we have a Kenya Sign Language bill which really much insists more on more Kenyans to really start to learn sign language, starting from the school level. Maybe all schools, whether the hearing or any other deaf school, all people to be engaged in that. And hopefully all Kenyans maybe in a span of 50 years will be able to sign, yes.
So there have been some strides, positive strides made?
Yes. And the impact is there so far, what you can say, and it's really much positive. So as I just informed you before, maybe sometimes if I can go to a club, for example, if I decide to go and get a drink, or if I decide to go in a church and I find an interpreter there, if I also put this into my thoughts, like in previous years, you know, people thought like being deaf is like a curse, you know. The people could not even, the deaf people could not be able to follow even the word of God. You know, it is really much important to access information. Even in Article 4B of the Constitution, it talks about accessibility of information. And right now, you know, we have different places, for example, the parliament, the churches, and right now we can see that there is sign language, and that is really positive from the Constitution and the law.
Yes, you have something to add to that, Dr.
May I
Mary?
just add? Yes. Just to add, research has shown that sign languages are different from spoken languages, but we have much more sign languages taking place with communication. So when you're learning sign language, there's a good cognitive development taking place. So you become more smarter, right, when you learn sign languages as a visual language. So exposure to sign language. So please come on and learn Kenyan Sign Language.
Now I have to learn it if it will make me smarter. But perhaps, Dr. Murray, you can tell us what the outcomes of your conference were.
So we have the World Federation of the Deaf Conference every 4 years globally. But before that, we have a 2-year conference where we focus on our ordinary members. We have 138 ordinary members as country associations that have national associations. So right now, we have 50 different countries in the first time ever conference in Africa. So thank you so much, Mr. Kakiri, for hosting us with your national association. I want to clarify our association goals with AI. It means strengthening the deaf community. When we do have challenges, we have this, we also have climate change that comes on, and the associations, we want to build robust deaf associations to understand what is happening in their countries and how to face this challenge. For example, when we had COVID, we also had a time where deaf people needed to understand how to get food parcels, what the program was, and communication was inaccessible. Or if something happens, for example, in Ukraine with the war that we had the Deaf Association supporting our different members. We supported refugees that wanted to go to other countries. And so it is important that the national associations are there and that they are empowered to work on the ground with the grassroots deaf people to ensure that government is ready to support our national associations if anything should happen.
All right. Nixon, as much as we have made positive strides, what opportunities are there for further improvement? The quote-unquote low-hanging fruits that we can address even as we look at how to make AI more responsive for persons, for the deaf.
Yes, yes. So let me talk about KSL. Right now, even in Parliament, it is in the second reading, the KSL bill. So with that KSL bill, we have an opportunity for AI also. There is a section that also talks about, you know, video calls, also tools for communications. And with that, we also have an opportunity for AI development. And this impacts how we communicate. And plus, we get to know even the deaf people who use KSL, how they can also get their communication. You know, before it was writing for someone to read, but we need more of, you know, like a second language. Like writing, for example, as AI itself, sometimes you can maybe put an information and maybe you write what you want. And sometimes whenever whenever you write that, it can be able to merge and grasp the information. But this way, we are trying to think of an information like in different other people. Like how can they be able to get the information? Maybe the AI can be able to, you know, grasp the information which is provided and feed. So we are having innovations that are coming up. For example, applications, the apps which are coming up right now, like they provide an opportunity to add on top of the AIs which are coming up. It's more of an engagement or partnership that we really need to work with, and it will create more opportunities for other people. And also, you know, visual communication is really much important in technology when you bring that perspective. And also, whenever we're doing maybe videos, or whenever you're making a call, video calls, or texting. Maybe also AI can also support in that. Yes, that will improve communication.
And so how do we get more technology in the hands of more persons from the deaf community?
Okay, so in schools, in the deaf schools, like not many teachers are teaching how, not taught like how to teach the deaf people. Most training are really having a different perspective of having, a deaf student right there, like that's their approach. But how to interact with technology is not there. So we need to improve that in the schools to get, the languages in Kiswahili, let's say, whatever language that we have. That way we can provide a support for even the students to learn even other languages. That is than as compared to other, like having international languages, and also we're having international signs that is used in the deaf community. But now, whenever we try to push for the KSL bill, like in the Constitution, many members in the parliament, they have a different understanding about their own counties and maybe also their culture based on their language. For example, when we compare countries, Uganda has their own sign language, Kenya has their own sign language based on the people and how they live their life. So based also on what we see every day. For example, when we compare other countries in Africa, or we compare other countries such as USA, they have their own ways of interacting with people every day. And that also influences how we develop our sign language. So this information is really much important for also the deaf people who do research in the community, and also they can share with the community. And also sometimes we also need more support because we feel like technology is more for us deaf people even than other people.
All right. Have the last word, Dr. Murray.
Thank you so much. I grew up in the United States at a time when sign languages were not accepted. But now when I go back to the United States, it's impossible to see that sign language is not being used. People are using the language. And so there's been a great change. We see that. People understand that sign languages is part of daily life, and it's a generational thing going on. So not only for deaf people, but for hearing people as well. So I want to encourage the Kenyan government to pass the sign language bill, to be able to have a mainstream society where Kenyan Sign Language can be understood. It's a beautiful part of Kenya, the culture, the traditions, the generations, so learn sign language and improve sign language.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen, for helping us giving insight on AI and sign language. We've had in studio Dr. Joseph Murray, who's the president of the World Federation of the Deaf, and Nixon Kakiri, who is the president of the Kenya National Association of the Deaf. We take a break, but when we come back, we have many more exciting topics. Stay tuned.